Hello, I'm Annette Young and welcome to the 51%, a show about women reshaping our world. Coming up. And as the French government continues its nationwide consultation to address domestic abuse, we join local police as they respond to calls of help from women facing violence from their partners. Also, 50 Shades of Grey matter. Does the brain have a gender? No, says British neuroscientist Gina Rippon, who's just written a book to explain why. We'll be talking to her shortly. And kicking off, we head to Senegal, where its women's rugby team is slowly gaining fans. But we begin in France, where a government panel has urged authorities to confiscate guns from people who are accused of domestic abuse. It's one of 65 recommendations released as part of an ongoing national consultation seeking solutions to end violence. Other proposals include mandatory reporting requirements for health professionals who witness signs of domestic abuse. Also, new protocols for police responding to complaints and educating children and teenagers about gender equality. Here in France, a woman is killed every 3 days by her partner or ex-partner, and it's often the police who are the frontline responders in such situations. Our colleagues at France 2 joined them on patrol.
1 a.m. in the Parisian suburb of Mantes-la-Jolie. A woman has called the police for help. She and her 2 children have taken shelter at their neighbour's flat, fearing her husband's violence.
D'accord. Il vous a frappé ce soir? Que menacé?
Police officers meet the husband to hear his side of the story.
Elle me prend la tête. Elle me menace, elle me parle de divorce. Et surtout, elle me parle irrespectueusement. Comme si j'étais pas un homme.
C'est un peu réfugié chez la voisine parce que vous la menacez avec un couteau.
Hein? Ah non, 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 non.
For now, officers say they can't do much more than to tell the husband to sleep elsewhere for the night. In a he said, she said situation, they have no concrete proof.
We arrived and there was no knife. We can't certify that he really threatened her with a knife. Everyone has their own story. Maybe there was violence in the past. If that's the case, it's up to her to file an official complaint.
In Mantes-la-Jolie, 1 in 10 police calls is for family disputes.
We must not take these disputes lightly. A lot of things can happen if we leave both people in the same house.
Another call to another neighborhood.
Pourquoi vous avez appelé 17
Pour leur prévenir parce qu'il commençait à s'énerver sur moi.
Il n'y a pas eu de violence, madame.
Non, bon, c'est un petit coup. Hein. Il m'a sauté dessus, mais c'est pas bien méchant, monsieur.
This time, the woman plays down the situation, but police tell the husband to leave the house anyway. Officers are then called to another potential scene of domestic violence.
C'est la police. On a été appelé par des voisins parce que il y a eu des cris provenant de votre appartement.
The couple insists they're fine. Police say they see this reaction often and that it's difficult to know if these cases are truly false alerts or not.
Now, here's a question for you. Does the brain have a gender? Well, according to British neuroscientist Gina Rippon, the answer is one big no. In her book, The Gender Brain, Rippon defies anybody to prove that it is physically possible to have a male or female brain. She joins me now from London. Gina, thank you so much for your time. Why are we so determined to give the brain a gender?
It's a very old issue. The idea that men and women are different because their brains are different has been with us for nearly 200 years. And it fits well with the beliefs we have when we look at gender gaps in the world and we think that women and men have different skills, different personalities, and this must explain why they have different roles in society.
And it all starts these days, doesn't it? Even before the child is born. I mean, we have gender reveal parties who are becoming incredibly popular.
Indeed. I mean, I think I really have a go at gender reveal parties in my book because I think they're a very good indication of how much emphasis there is in the 21st century on whether you're male or female, a boy or a girl. You know, the fact that 20 weeks before somebody arrives in the world. Their families are already trying to put them into a particular box, pink or blue, rifles or ruffles, etc. And I think it tells us a lot about how big the emphasis is in our world about being male or female.
And there's still much literature to this day that talks about the inferiority of the female brain, isn't there?
There is. I mean, the term inferior was quite explicitly used right at the beginning of this sort of hunt the differences agenda in brain science, where male scientists were trying to explain that women had inferior positions in society because they had inferior brains. We have shifted slightly from that view, but there is a suggestion that women have a different set of skills, different personalities, and that this is determined by their brain.
Now, you talk about the plasticity of the brain, that it's merely shaping itself to meet cultural expectations. So what you are saying is that there's nothing in our biology to stop us from closing the gender gap, is there?
Well, I think what we're looking at is we now understand how important what goes on outside our heads is as important as what's going on inside our heads. And given that we have this big pressure from society that men and women should behave differently, should have different expectations, I really believe that that we need to look very carefully at those pressures. I mean, I'm not denying that there are biological sex differences in the brain. What I'm saying is that I think the kind of gendered expectations that our brains encounter shape them in very profound ways.
So how can we change people's attitudes as such?
Well, I think getting away from the myth of the female and the male brain in terms of, you are born with a particular kind of anatomy, and whatever it was that determined that anatomy also determines the kind of brain you have. I think if we can get away from that and understand that our brains are full of potential, but our brains are also very responsive to what's going on around them. So if what's going on around them is suggesting that men and women can do something different, then we need to address that very carefully and from very early on, because, apart from gender reveal parties, our tiny humans are plunged into what I've called a pink and blue tsunami of expectations from the moment of birth. And we could really look quite carefully about how we could change those and make sure we don't have different expectations of our boys and girls.
How does menstruation, pregnancy and menopause, for instance, affect the brain? And does that not impact a woman's brain as a result, given the extraordinary influx of hormones?
Yeah, I mean, certainly hormones are the chemicals, the kind of driving fuel of the brain, and the term hormone means drive to action. So different levels of hormones will have different, certainly physical effects, and quite possibly psychological as well. But I think one of the things that we're finding is that if you have a belief in the kind of biological vulnerability of an individual, sometimes we start to overemphasize those particular differences, and they almost become a self-fulfilling prophecy, so that people think they are not able to do certain things, or that they are experiencing particular behavioural problems, which may be partly related to hormones, but also we need to look at what else, the context of what's going on as well. And understanding that, I think, can make people less victim to their biology.
Gina Rippon, it's been great speaking to you. Thank you so much. And in recent weeks, sports coverage has been dominated by the Men's World Cup rugby in Japan, but women's rugby is increasingly becoming popular across the world, especially in Africa. Yet in countries such as Senegal, it hasn't been easy to get the ball off the ground, as this report reveals.
On this beach in Dakar, the Senegalese women's rugby team trains. Their practice conditions are a far cry from those enjoyed by male teams. But these players, including captain Anna Prera, don't get discouraged easily. Anna is to thank in part for introducing women's rugby to Senegal, where it was largely non-existent 10 years ago.
C'est un beau sport pour les femmes. It's a great sport for women because it makes you strong. Today, thousands of women play rugby in Senegal. I feel proud when I see them having fun, laughing, getting upset, and then playing on.
Making do with few resources, Anna formed the first women's national team in 2010. Since then, she's represented Senegal along with her teammates at various international competitions. Alexis Arnaud-Bess was one of the team's first coaches. He's been a part of the adventure from the very beginning.
She's a born leader, a warrior, and has no preconceptions. When she has an objective, she doesn't quit and follows through.
The lack of resources isn't the only challenge Anna has faced. In this conservative country, cultural perceptions can also be an obstacle.
There are many stereotypes surrounding this issue. Some people think that physical contact can make you lose your virginity, even though that's not true. Women who play sports are belittled. Some accuse them of wanting to be a man or of not wanting to have kids.
Anna has seen many of her teammates quit under pressure from their family. Some husbands don't allow their wives to play the sport. But Anna, at 35 years old, is still pursuing her passion. She's a single mother, teaching her young daughter the rules of her beloved game with her own mother's support.
Being a woman doesn't mean you can't do anything. Women must be versatile and able to do everything.
So you're proud of Anna?
Yes, so proud, because she's brave. She's at the top of her game. She's going to win. We're going to win.
Anna's legacy may well continue to shape Senegal as women's rugby continues to grow in the country.
Great to see. And that's it for now. You can also connect with us via our Facebook page, that's France24.51%, or do send us a tweet at _51%. So until our next show, bye for now.